live. Okay, so welcome to the YouTube. Anybody that's joining us on the YouTube channel, on the Not Your Average Guy show, we're live on YouTube. I think this is our second time being live on YouTube. First time was from Union Station.
I do see it. I'm really blurry for whatever reason. Yeah. But it is there. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So what do you got for us this week, Darcy?
Well, let me think what's gone on. I mentioned on Kinsman Guild, one of my plans for this week was to get some holes patched in my siding, try to keep the birds and the squirrels out. So I definitely got the main one patched up yesterday after work. So that ought to keep the birds out. Now I'm going to have to, my next thing is figuring out what I'm going to do on the ends of my new porch eaves, basically, and get a plan there and then fill it in. Because
all of your new rafters, they socket into the current roof.
They lay on a flat valley,
and it's just open between them.
Yes,
oh, they lay on a flat valley, but there's still open areas.
It's space underneath. It's space in between the two roofs.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. I just overlaid.
Is your roof on the new section?
No. Just ice and water guard.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm gonna run out of water before this thing's over.
Oh, that's no good. I filled up my water.
Feeling like I wasn't drinking enough water lately.
Oh man, I have too. I think we're hitting that part of the year where we're coming out of winter time, and winter with much less sweating, we just naturally drink less water, and it doesn't affect us as much. Summertime, we can't get away with doing that. And so I just stay hydrated better in the summertime. And right now we're just at that transition period where starting to sweat, starting to need the water more, but haven't quite changed over to being well hydrated.
Yeah. I felt like that today because I was wearing pants that were too heavy for this time of year. Well, not too heavy for this time of year, but too heavy for the weather that we experienced today. Yeah. And I was like getting back from working and thinking, man, my kidneys are hurting or something. Like I haven't been drinking enough water.
Yeah, that's no good.
So I can still hear you, but I'm going to go grab a little bit more water.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, it's March 12th, and I saw mowing crews out today. So that's pretty wild. That's pretty early. Been cutting daffodils for little kitchen vases and things.
So I'll get back over to the microphone, and I don't know if this counts as water, but it's all that I have down here between my my sound barrier. Wait, where am I at? Remember, we were gonna test this stuff. I don't know if this even counts as water.
It's tonic water,
but it's not very good. It does taste like medicine.
Why don't you give us a review on that, Dan?
Okay, I'm gonna review this Polar Diet.
It's an unboxing.
Tonic water with lime. Crafted with. It looks like it says quinine. I mean,
it is. That is what it says, is quinine.
Well, isn't that a poison?
No, So yes, in improper dosage. It's funny that quinine came up that quickly in our in conversation.
Did you hear the because this is part of my review. It has
Oh, good. Yeah.
a nice,
Okay, we'll come back
and
to
it
the
has a
quinine.
nice gas seal. It has a good
Okay.
sealing lid, but a
Yeah.
nice
Oh, good.
crisp break. First taste.
Yeah. First taste right now.
It's not good. It's carbonated, but I don't appreciate the version of diet sweetener that they put in it.
What do they use?
Not a fan. Quinine.
That's not a sweetener.
They use I don't know. They don't lime flavor aspartame.
There we go.
Aspartame.
Yeah.
In a pinch, trying to stay hydrated, it's tolerable, but I'm not a fan.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So on the subject of quinine,
okay.
I've been reading a book, listening to a book on not Grover Cleveland, James Garfield, and 20th president of the United States, elected in 1881, maybe.
James Garfield.
Yeah. Are you looking it up?
20th president, 1831. Is that what you just said?
1831. No, I said 81. I was 50 years off.
Oh, wait. He was born 1831. Sorry. He was elected 1881. 100 years before my year of birth.
Yeah.
You were right.
So, okay. I was willing to be 50 years wrong. Man, I got gunk in my pocket. So James Garfield, he was president for about 6.5 months. And he was shot. And he ultimately died. Had he had different medical care, and I'm not talking modern medicine, I'm talking at least a little bit of professionalism, there's a good chance he would have made it. Not a good chance. Had he been shot the way he was shot today, it would never have even been considered a fatal wound.
Shot like the love handle or something?
No, he was he was shot right in the middle of the back, about 4 inches to the right of his spine. But then it just went in and then lodged in some fatty tissue. It missed all of his vital organs and stopped pretty near his pancreas, but didn't burst his pancreas or anything like that.
And it was a musket or whatever, so it wasn't.
It was
traveling
a
at
revolver.
Fast and explosive. Okay, so very.
It was a revolver, and he was shot at. He was shot from. Let me think here. The first shot hit him in the arm, and he was.
So he shot multiple times.
Feet away from the shooter. Yes, he was shot twice. The second shot, he would have been a little bit further away. So I think he was shot at like 3 feet from the first shot, and then probably more like 6 or 8 feet the second shot. And he dropped down to the ground. He was in a train station. He dropped down to the ground, and they started hollering for doctors. And the first doctor, or one of the first doctors on the scene, decided that he was going to see if he could feel the bullet. So this is right during the time that I think his name is Franz Liszt. You might recognize his name as part of the common household item Listerine. He was trying to get the medical world to understand microbes and infection, bacteria,
like sterilizing things.
Sterilization. Yeah, he was big on sterilization. He changed his sterilization practices, or started using sterilization practices, and his patient outcomes were far and above better than anyone else's. But the entire medical community, especially in America, Europe was starting to accept it. France was doing really well. America was just like, there's no magic, tiny, unseeable germs that are killing all our patients. They're just dying.
We just don't know why they're dying.
People took it as a personal insult when he said, if you used better sanitization practices, you would have better outcomes. So anyway, and in this book, they talk about these different doctors and surgeons who they would wear a surgery smock. And many of them thought that the more like crusty and grimy their smock was, the better. Like they would not wash their surgery clothes because they liked the image of that like doctor,
that butchery,
that surgeon who'd been in it. Like, and then another common practice that was detrimental was on this.
That makes my hands numb, by the way, like thinking about it.
Dude, yeah. On the surgery,
I'm a little bit of a neat freak about this stuff.
When they're going into surgery, they would like loop their sutures over their buttons so that it'd be handy. So even if they had a sterile suture, it's hanging in grime. And then there were a few surgeons who thought, oh, well, sure, I'll wash my hands. And maybe I'll even dip my scalpels and things in the carbolic acid, was what they were using for sterilization of instruments. And they would use like a 4% solution for sterilization of like body parts and wounds and things. Anyway, but then they would be working on things and they'd just put their knife in their mouth and continue working and then cut on, someone. So anyway, this is common practice in the U.S.
This isn't going back in him. Would you cook that up for me?
In the 1880s. And the other thing is that a lot of the surgeons, like the Liszt guy, he is trying to get everyone to use fully sterilizable instruments. But these guys had these fancy knives that they liked using, fancy instruments with wooden handles or ivory handles that are not sterilizable. Like you can't boil a wooden handle or an ivory handle. And so it's just so many things going against antiseptic practices. So anyway, all that to say, old James Garfield gets shot. He's laying on the dirty floor of Union Station in Washington. And this doctor comes in off the street and is kneeling around, is on the ground, and he he decides that he needs to see if he can tell where the bullet is. And so he just sticks his finger in the wound. Like just jams his finger as far as he can into
Into his body
Garfield's
cavity.
back. Yes, into, and he's got broken ribs. So there's you're gonna get sepsis in your bones, in your blood, in your body, your
Mhm.
abdominal cavity. It's going everywhere that it can. And then eventually there's like, I can't remember if they said the actual number. I think there was maybe like 11 dudes that come along, sticking their finger in there, trying to feel if they can feel the bullet.
Which is kind of a moot point, as we know now.
Correct.
What's it going to do for him to remove the bullet?
Right. And then
lead poisoning. He avoids dying of lead poisoning.
No, you don't even. There were that. So that was another thing. There were countless dudes running around with bullets in them. In fact, one of, who was it? I think it was one of the like carriage drivers or somebody that was driving him around while he was shot, had been shot in the head during the Civil War and had a bullet in his head that they never removed.
Yeah.
But because he was the
I know a guy who had a bullet in his shoulder that was never removed.
Yeah. Because he was the president, it was like, we're going to give this guy way more, not better, but way more attention than a soldier on the battlefield. So starts out with just all these doctors jamming their dirty fingers in his wound. And then this other doctor who decides he's going to make a name for himself by saving the president takes over. And the guy is 100% against sterilization practices and just kills him, basically. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah. He lived for a little over 2 months, I think, after being shot, but got sepsis and died from that. I mean, he was just had massive fevers ultimately at the end and got him. Just ridiculous. But potentially even crazier than that is the guy that shot him. I think old boy's name was Charles Guiteau. And this dude was, oh my goodness. He was excited to shoot the president. And he figured not the day that he shot him, a few days before, he was going to shoot him a few days before that. And he wrote a letter to the vice president, basically saying, hey, I'm the guy that enabled you to be the president. And I know General Sherman, and I'm probably sitting in prison right now, but Sherman, I wrote a letter to General Sherman, and he's going to bring the federal troops, and they're going to free me, and I should have a prominent spot in your cabinet after I kill the president and allow you to be the president, since you were the vice president.
But maybe I'm mistaken on the timeline, but this is a time when the vice president was the second runner-up in the election. Correct?
No,
They didn't
he,
run as a president VP at that time, did they?
this is beyond that. So
This is
it
after
was,
that.
yeah, they were both from the same
Okay.
party. Well, generally, they were both from the Republican Party, but different factions of that were these two guys. And this dude was kind of appointed. He was appointed. He was not chosen as a running mate by Garfield.
Mhm.
He was appointed by the Republican
By the party.
convention, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what ended up happening to him? Was
Garfield,
he shot?
who? The guy
The
that
guy who assassinated him.
well, so that I don't know.
Because he sent the letter.
He
Didn't you
was
say he sent the letter before?
so the morning of he went
Uh-huh.
to the train station. And so here's another interesting thing. This is in the 1880s. This is before there was any type of Secret Service. And in fact, it may have been the end of no presidential guard.
Mhm.
He was about to go take a trip with his two sons to meet his wife and his other two sons in New Jersey and spend some time on the coast. Like, he was excited. I think it was New Jersey he was headed for. He was just going to hop on the train by himself. The Secretary of State had ridden with him in the carriage to the train station and walked him into the train station and was going to see him off. But he was just getting on the train and heading out on his own because he's the president of the United States. And even though, like, in other countries, people try to assassinate leaders, in the U.S., the leader is chosen by the people. And so if you kill him, you're not actually getting anything done, because it's not like you're going to then install
You're not deposing
your
someone and installing
right.
somebody
You're not
else.
going to install your own leader. So that was kind of the thought: is what good does it do to assassinate the president of the United States? So he didn't have any security or anything. But he may have been the last guy for that. I think they may have started protecting the president after that. He was the last of quite a few different things. It's a pretty cool book. You should read it. It's called Destiny of the Republic. So James Garfield was the last president to have been born in a log cabin. So that's kind of neat. Just something interesting. He was the last president to receive a unanimous nomination by his party. He definitely was the last. He may have been the only president who was nominated as the Republican candidate, or it's on both sides. It's not like the Democrats have done it and the Republicans, that was their time. It has never happened since, and maybe never before. He was not running for president. He was voting for and supporting somebody else, and the nominations were just going on and on and on. And there were so many people that were seeking nomination, and so many people didn't like any of them. There were no one was getting a majority. Like, there were enough candidates that no one was going to get the majority and win the nomination, until all of a sudden, like, I don't know, 30 some votes in, people started voting for Garfield, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to do it." And he went and he was like, you need to throw out those votes for me. And then he'd, jump up and make a speech for the candidate that he was supporting.
Yeah.
Who he ended up making his, I think that's the guy that he made Secretary of State. But yeah, so it was all of these votes beforehand with no one gaining a majority. And then eventually, like, 7 electors cast their vote for Garfield. And he was like, we're not doing this. He's like, it's disrespectful. I'm trying to be respectful to the candidate that my party is putting forward. And so then they vote again, and he gets like 30 some votes. And they vote, but still nobody has a majority. And then all of a sudden, like 20 some votes later, every single
20 some cycles.
Yes. Yeah.
It just keeps gaining more steam.
And at the end,
he's the guy who's like,
and he's like, no. So then at the end, every single state cast all of their votes for James Garfield, and he was nominated with 100% of the vote to be the Republican nominee.
So oddly enough, that ruins my idea, which is that everybody should be voting for a guy who doesn't want to be the president. Because evidently even that guy can make people mad. And
no, okay, so
shot.
That's the craziest thing. That dude probably would have been an amazing president. He was a strategist. Yeah. He gained his notoriety maybe in the war. He was just a good strategist, and he was kind of fearless. Like, there was, I think, his first big success. They knew a battle was coming, and I think that the Confederate Army was marching with like 3,000 troops, and they were coming to take a really pivotal place. Like, it was some place that the Union could not lose. But they had like 400 soldiers, and it was going to be too long before they got reinforcements. And so Garfield like comes up with this plan, and he's not like this renowned general at this time. He's just, I think he was a general, maybe only a captain. I don't know. But so he throws out this plan, and basically everyone was like, well, we don't have any other ideas. Might as well let old boy give it a go. I mean, we're either going to do nothing and lose, or
just be sitting here when they get here and lose.
Yeah. Or we're going to try to advance and lose, and then it'll be on us. Or we let this guy give it a shot, and then if we lose, at least it's on him, because it was his idea. And so what he did is he basically knew where the Confederate Army was coming from, and he's like, okay, we want to go right now. We want to advance immediately, because they know, or they think they know, that we have a small force here. So if we attack, number one, that's going to catch them off guard, because they're seeing the same thing we're seeing. They have huge numbers. We have small numbers. They're going to win this fight. He's like, but I think he had read it of something like this in a book. Maybe it wasn't his original idea. If we divide, so we're going to divide our small army into 3, and we're going to take a third of them, and we're going to march straight at them, and we're going to hit them hard from the front. We're going to be the aggressor, and they're going to start fighting. It'll catch them off guard, but they'll probably still think, well, this is their small army. We're going to wipe them out. He's like, but then I'm going to have another third attack them from the flank. So all of a sudden, like real quick too. So there's not enough time to assess the attack from the front and then realize what's happening. You know, they're going to get attacked. They're not going to have time to say there's only 175 people attacking us. We're still good. So we attack them from the front. We hit them from the side immediately. All of a sudden it divides their attention, and then we hit them from the other side with our third, and they're not going to be able to communicate quick enough to figure out that we're still a tiny army. We just are tricking them.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. And the big army, the army of 3,000, retreated almost immediately. Like it was a huge,
because they don't know. Yeah,
they didn't know. It was a big bluff,
right.
but it worked. So that kind of put him on the map too. Like all of a sudden, he's this general that takes risks and wins battles. But okay, so I was starting to say about this dude that shot him. Oh, I gotta sneeze. I've been mowing today. I'm all full of dust. So this dude, Charles Guiteau, he is a crazy dude. He is fairly young, and from a young age, he decides that God has something amazing for his life. So he was on a riverboat, I think, at some point, and the thing caught fire and went down, and he survived. So because he survived, he knew that he was destined for great things. And he was going to be super famous. He knew he was going to be really famous and rich. Because that's what God wants for him. So he
sure. Why not?
Yeah. So he at different points in his life, let me think here. He was a traveling evangelist, but no one liked him. Like he's just this little weasel guy. So he just figured out that if he would go speak at these religious gatherings, he could get the honorarium, and they'd pay him, and they'd usually give him room and board too, and feed him, or just keep him at somebody's house or whatever. So he would go do that, and basically until he wore out his welcome, and they'd send and then he'd leave in the night generally. Or if they didn't give him a place to stay, he would rent a room, but then he would leave in the night without paying his bill. And he would borrow money from anyone. He said he would say stuff like, I never want to beat around the bush when I'm trying to borrow money. I just say it straight out. I'd like to spend some money on something and I don't have any money. Could you give me $10 or whatever, whatever. In fact, the pistol that he bought to kill Garfield with, he went and borrowed $15 from some guy he hadn't seen in almost 2 years. And before the previous time that he asked him for money, he hadn't seen him in about, I think it said maybe 20 years. Like it was some guy from college or something like that.
Sounds like my brother.
He was he was in the paper the day that he shot Garfield. There was an ad run by a lady who ran a boarding house, wanting him, like looking for him because he owed money.
Yeah.
And he was just, he was a crook. He was involved in a cult for a while, and it was kind of this like free love cult, which he really liked, but none of the women liked him. So it didn't really work out for him.
It wasn't as free as he was hoping for.
No.
Uh,
So he lasted there for a little while until they like sort of kicked him out. And he was like, "No, you're not kicking me out. I'm leaving." That kind of thing. Because he thought he was going to kind of be the next. The leader of that was kind of a deity type of a guy. Like he
yeah.
was, and old Charles thought he was going to be the next guy in line for that. So then that was one of his deals that he did. I think it was called Oneida, that cult. And then he decided that he was going to be in politics, and he was going to be the basically ambassador. He decided when Garfield got elected, he's going to be Guiteau is going to be the ambassador to Aust- uh, Austria, I think. And so he started telling people that. He said, because he talked somebody into letting him get up and speak once during the campaign. He wrote a speech and got up and spoke for almost 2 minutes before he kind of just was out of things to say. And then he would tell people that he stumped for Garfield, and his speech in wherever it was that he'd weaseled his way onto the platform was one of the main reasons why Garfield got elected. Like, he would tell people he got Garfield elected. And then he hung out at the White House in the waiting room for months, because he just knew he was going to be appointed the ambassador basically to Austria. But then he changed his mind and he figured he would go to Paris. He'd go to France. Then he'd be good with that. And he told people he knew so and so, and he was friends with so and so. He threw out these names, the vice president and different generals and the Secretary of State. And basically, if anybody ever gave him the time of day or looked in his direction, he took that as confirmation. So like, everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, we've got your letter. And Garfield said that every day he would get bushels of letters requesting appointments. Like, everyone who had ever come across his path, as soon as he became president, they're asking him to put them in a position that is government appointed. So this guy is just the same. As far as they all know, he's the same. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we got your letter, and we just haven't gotten around to making those appointments yet." And so he takes that as like, it's any day, they're gonna let me know that I'm headed to Paris. So eventually, he corners the Secretary of State, and the guy's like, "Dude, you're a whack job. Never ask me ever again for this appointment. It's not happening." And oddly enough, that night, God told him that he needed to assassinate James Garfield. So, because then what would happen is the guy General Arthur, who was the vice president, not general, whoever his name is, Arthur, who was the vice president at the time, would be so grateful for him getting him into the presidential seat that he would then realize the value of Guteau and give
Of
him the appointment
of
to.
the assassin.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy dude.
Nuts.
All that to say, wash your hands.
Okay, but wait. What about quinine?
So, quinine was one of the things that was like almost a miracle drug at the time, and they were given Garfield buckets of quinine, which can be
Oh,
toxic.
right.
So it was like morphine, quinine, which quinine they try to use a little bit as a antiseptic, but um, yeah, the doctor that took care of Garfield was terrible. He, like I said, he was just hoping to make a name for himself. He would say, I'm going to be the doctor that saved James Garfield, the president of the United States. Um, but he Garfield had a pretty um, sensitive stomach. Like there were a
Mhm.
lot of things that he couldn't eat and just wouldn't. But when he got shot and he's like got fevers and stuff and laying in the hospital bed in the White House, dude decides that he needs to eat like the richest diet you can get. Like just so much steak and butter and everything that Garfield normally wouldn't eat. So
Mhm.
he's vomiting like crazy all the time, hugely
He was sick all the
dehydrated.
time.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep. um, you know, diarrhea, just he couldn't, so he's dehydrated. Um, and the doctor, doesn't take any of this into account. He's just he's in charge, and that's that.
Quinine is used to treat malaria.
Which Garfield had a couple times.
I'm mostly just curious what happens if I do this. So, oh, come on. What's that about? Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Me?
Um, yeah,
Well,
trying to.
yeah, so I'm down to pretty much the end of the book. I think the only thing left is kind of wrapping up what happened to the dude that shot him, because he just died in the book. He he really wanted to see the ocean one last time. Like he knew he was dying, and he
Mhm.
really wanted to see the ocean one more time. And so the doctor was like, "No, you can't go. You're not strong enough. If you go, you might die." And Garfield was like, "I'm going." So he so they oh man, another story. This is early. So he gets shot. He's laying on the floor in the train station, and his wife was like an hour and a half train ride away. So they get word to her, and they put together a special train. It's just an engine and a Pullman car, and the thing is booking it down the tracks. Like all the other trains are pulling off on sidings so that that train can like get to Washington and get her to Garfield. And I think it said 20 miles out it threw a main like crank axle, which normally would have derailed the train, or like very easily could have derailed the train. And so it ripped up the tracks and ties behind the train for miles, and couldn't stop. Uh, and they said generally that failure, especially with that light of a train, just an engine in one car, would have derailed the train. And if it had derailed, that one car would have just shattered, essentially, would have just splintered, and she would have been dead. But it stayed on the tracks, and she made it and was fine. But anyway, so it's the end. He's dying. He wants to see the ocean again. So they retrofit a train, and people gather along the train tracks for miles from DC to somewhere in New Jersey, to see him going by. How the heck is Jimmy in the lobby? Did you invite him?
Yeah.
What's up, Jimbo?
What's going on?
Hey, we're doing a podcast. You're live. Not your average guy show.
Special guest.
Special
Jimmy
guest.
and the Beard.
We're talking about James Garfield.
Fun.
Are you named after James Garfield?
I think I'm named after my dad.
Ah, man, James Garfield is better than your dad.
Oh,
Probably. I don't really know who James Garfield is.
He's the 20th president of the
well,
United
you'll have
States.
to just.
You'll have to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, we're half an hour into the story of James Garfield, so you may have to.
Well,
yeah.
Should have brought me on earlier if you wanted me to know what you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even know. All of a sudden, it just said Jimmy's in the waiting room.
Dan, I got this link on my phone and it said join me or something, and so I pushed the link and here I am.
Yeah, good thing you had clothes on.
I didn't.
I just assumed you'd be in the shower, but most of the time, whenever I talk to you, you're in the shower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good.
Yeah,
I've never
that's,
been in the shower with you, but
I'm gonna get in the shower after this. Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah, I put a shirt on.
we're already actually 50 minutes in.
I know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
last
I'm an
week,
hour, or
did
no,
I tell
I'm a minute
you?
and 30 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Did I tell you last week? Had John passed away last week when we talked?
No. Well,
No. I think he didn't.
I don't think so.
At the,
Because when did we? Was it? It was Wednesday night last week.
Last Wednesday. Yeah, I
He
think it was
died
the
on
next day,
Wednesday?
actually.
Okay.
No, he died on Thursday, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So we went up to his funeral,
Yeah.
and so I guess the main thing I was going to say about it, because it's kind of an interesting thing. I've talked to a number of people about old Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy is what my dad called him.
Is it?
Old Johnny Boy. And a couple things. They found in his Bible that he had baptized by the Holy Spirit March 9th, 1980.
Okay.
And they did his service March 9th, 2024.
Okay. Interesting.
So however many years that is to the day.
Is that
43 years to the day.
okay?
That
Yeah.
seems right.
Yes.
No. 42 years.
No.
43 years. Yeah. Um. Anyway, so I was telling one guy about old John, who was probably like my second, the guy who I cared what he thought, the adult man who I cared what he thought more than probably anybody else in the world as a kid. And the story that I was relaying was that one time he actually bought a bow so that he could hunt archery with my dad in the probably late 90s, something like that. And he had gone down to B&B Archery. Remember that place, B&B Archery?
Oh, yeah.
in Raytown,
Yep.
I think. And they got him set up with a bow, and they took him, like they had a little range that they had set up, and they got him shooting with this bow. And my dad, when they got back to the house, so he might have only been 2 or 3 days, I don't know exactly the details of this, but like 2 or 3 days into him shooting archery at all, like 2 or 3 days in. One of the things was that we had those wrist straps back then, and well, I guess they still do, but they had taught him to shoot with an open hand so that he wasn't gripping the bow, and he forgot to put the wrist strap on his brand new bow, and he shot, and it just flew off the roof onto the ground because he had forgotten to put the wrist strap on.
Yeah.
But that was one of the kind of funny things. He didn't ruin the bow. They were pretty stout back then.
Sure.
But Dad, for whatever reason, was like, you guys should have a competition, and Dan, at 12 years old or something, you should shoot against John in this competition. And so he's probably a 40-year-old man, and
Which is never
or
a good
older,
idea
probably
to go up against Dan in a shooting competition.
is a terrible idea, and he didn't want to do it. But my dad is my dad, and so I smoked him. Like, I shot every day and had for a while. I smoked him, and that wasn't good enough. I had to like rub it in, and I'm probably 11 years old or 10 years old, and I just have to just rub it in, and I just keep rubbing it in because I learned how to tease John from my dad. And to be quite honest, I think that when you have somebody like that, you, as a kid, you get too familiar with them, and you forget that they're an adult and you're a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what John said to me, but I do remember that it was the first time that I was ever like, oh, you have gone too far in teasing John. And I felt terrible. I mean, I felt like the worst person in the world for how I had teased him. It was like you, at that age, you realize that you're a sentient being, and then this person expands your knowledge to realize that like everyone is just as conscious as you are. Everyone has feelings, not just you. And yet, for some reason, I never felt like John was against me. Like, I always still felt like John liked me and wanted to see the best in me, but he did somehow. I don't even know what he said, or if he just looked at me funny. He was like, "That's enough. You've gone too far." And on the other hand, I have an uncle who was the most gentlest guy, but the two different times that I've ever had an uncle yell at me over something, I was just playing. I wasn't even playing rock music. I was singing a Gaither song to like somebody, and he lit me up because we don't sing or play rock and roll music. And like, I realized with him, this other uncle whose name I'm not going to mention, it's not safe to screw up around him. ever.
Yeah.
Like a completely, and I would say far and away, John was a more gruff, rough, masculine guy, but he was safe. And
Yeah.
this other uncle that I had was a gentle person, but wasn't safe at all. So anyway, we went up to his funeral on Saturday, and it was good times. See everybody that we
Nice.
know from up there.
Yep.
But yeah. And also from last week, I think we covered this. My tree did not burn down, although that limb burned up like a cigarette. Like it was almost entirely gone up to the tree whenever
Really?
I came back to it. It's crazy. Just
But then it
a
just
rotted limb.
stopped at the.
Well, the rest of the tree was alive.
Okay.
It didn't go all the way to the tree, but it was fine. My whole house and everything was still there whenever I got there.
That's really good.
So, yeah, I'm happy. So, what you got going on, Jimmy? Since you joined us, I'm assuming that you've got some wisdom to share with us.
Is that why I joined you?
No?
I went to the dentist this morning.
Oh man.
Yep, got a
That's
cleaning.
all?
It
Okay.
was good.
Just a cleaning?
Yep.
Yeah.
They said I did a good job keeping my teeth clean.
They always tell you
I
that.
need to
if
get
they
back to the
can't charge you
dentist.
any money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I worked on installing some trim.
I did not.
Over there at that project by us?
No, I'm finished with that one. I'm over in Liberty now.
Okay.
Same thing, water damage. Somebody else ripped out all the stuff, and I'm replacing all the trim and drywall and carpet.
Nice.
Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, you tell me why you brought me on. I wasn't
I don't
planning
have
on
any
being
idea.
on here.
I just wanted to see. I wanted to see what would happen because I
You're
was
just
kind of
trying out
curious.
some new features?
Yeah, I was kind of just curious if it would do 3, and then I can go to the live and see what it looks like on the live. Because our
Yeah.
audience is very small right now, so we can kind of,
Where's the live at?
kind of have carte blanche.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're I think we're pretty much at 0 for audience members. So not a whole lot to lose
Well,
as we
I mean,
play
it
around with
is
this.
10:45 at night.
Yeah. But you can come back and watch it anytime.
True.
We just got a like, so there's that
How? From who?
on YouTube.
Oh, you probably
me.
can't see that. I wonder if I can tell. From you.
Yeah.
You're throwing off our analytics.
It's like, yeah, I just liked it. We got a like.
Well, I mean, at least we have something to analyze.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the other thing in business coaching today. I'll tell you guys what we covered, and
Okay.
you give me your thoughts on it. I'll give you the short synopsis of the idea. And this is from a book called Business Made Simple. And I'll just give you the footnote. A value-driven professional does not choose to be confused about the right decision they need to make. And the chapter starts off with a value-driven professional does not choose to be confused, period. What do you guys think about that statement? Is there enough there? Is there enough there for the purpose, or should I elaborate more? The idea was most of the time in business and in life, you actually do know what the right thing to do is, but you choose to, I don't know if it's pretend to be confused or just choose to live in a fog of indecisiveness because the right decision is hard.
Okay.
Like if you have an employee, for instance, and that employee's your brother, and you know that he needs to be fired, you choose to turn a blind eye to, improprieties or the fact that he doesn't show up for work or whatever, because if you chose clarity on the subject, the answer is obvious. Like you wouldn't behave this way for any other employee. So why are you doing it for, your sibling? Presuming there's not extenuating circumstances where, your sibling is incapable of being employed somewhere else or whatever the case may be. I don't know. I didn't get a lot of traction with the guys because, I think I'm not really in charge of the company, so I can say I think that they like living in a fair amount of unclear waters because as a group, they like not having to have any professional standard that they adhere to. And it makes it really easy to keep their jobs without putting in a full effort at their jobs. But nobody had any comment. I taught the whole thing and they were like, no comment.
Yeah.
So you were teaching this?
Yeah, I'm a business coach. You knew that, right, Jimmy? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just,
That's
as
what
a
I
matter
do
of fact,
for a living.
He has very few openings for businesses that are still wanting to get in this year. If you want to subscribe,
no more openings. Yeah, I have a very limited quantity of businesses. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a new thing, and it's kind of something I'm trying out to see if it's to see how it works. So what it is I sold a business coaching package with the retreat center with a couple of company offsites at the Rock House location. And so it's kind of like an all-inclusive business coaching and company offsite for a small company, construction company. And we're trying to get them kind of on track to clarify what it is their expectations of their employees are. And this quarter has been more or less like a test run on what we're going to do going forward. And I can't say much more than that because, it'd be my luck that the guys that are employed there that might not be employed there in the future just randomly decide to watch the podcast. And then they're like, oh, we're getting ready to be fired. So,
nice.
But not you. Not you who's watching, the other guy.
Yeah, not you if you're watching.
And
Bill,
the brother thing was
Frank.
just hypothetical.
Hypothetical. Purely hypothetical. Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds like fun.
But what do you think in life? Do you think that that's true? Do you think that you live life that way?
Sure. I mean, the more it's easier to come up with an excuse, I guess, if you have the unsurety.
Yeah.
What so state your question again,
My question about the,
or your
do you think
statement,
that,
your statement,
do
the
you think,
value driven.
do you think that a value-driven professional, let me just read it again. Does not choose to be confused.
And that's out of a book that you're looking at?
Yeah.
So
It's
what's
it's
your
a business coaching book. Yeah.
yeah. So how did you break down the term value driven professional? Because I have been a construction guy for a long time, or a long period of time. And if I'm going to say that for the most part, like your regular old construction guys have never thought of themselves as a value driven professional, or even considered that to be
Mhm.
something that they're striving for, like, or have ever even thought those words in a phrase or whatever.
Yeah. So the way that it's set, the way that we set it up is that the company is moving from being ragtag, like kind of go at your own pace, show up when you want kind of a company, to having some professional standards, so that when we interact with clients at their homes, they know what to expect from one crew to the next, from one guy that shows up to the next, and they get a consistent pattern of behavior on the part of everybody, from the sales guy that sells the job to the guys that come to do the job or manage the job if there's a subcontractor that's going to actually do the work, to the guy that's billing. And we're trying to streamline that whole process. So it's probably like Jimmy's worked for Countertop Guy, who was a subcontractor for Home Depot, and there was a list of requirements that you had to adhere to in order to do jobs for Home Depot. Is that true, Jimmy? You had to wear their shirts,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you were like a white label
Shirts
contractor,
and
but
name tag and
yeah. And you knew how you were supposed to show up and how you were supposed to leave their project, or the Home Depot people would, notch your thing as like good, bad, or indifferent, I think. And so
right.
you are correct that these guys are not accustomed to having any professional standards, but that's not the direction that the company is going, because you can't scale if you don't have any kind of professional standard.
Yeah.
And
I think
some of them aren't going to like it, and they're not going to stick around because they don't want to do it. Like some of them like thinking, hey, I've got a job, even though in the last month, I did 2 no call, no shows for work, and I was the crew leader. Like,
yeah.
Like how, okay, you worked for a contractor and you wouldn't say that, like the guys thought of themselves as professionals, but did they have the expectation that if they were in charge of a crew and they no call, no showed, that they would keep their job?
Yeah. I mean, I would hope not, but that's
Like somebody has to
that's
like step up and say, this is how things are going to be, or we're going to move in a different direction. So, but I think it's very hard to call people to account if you have allowed them to kind of be lackadaisical about their performance for years. And,
Yes.
you know, at some point you have to reset. You potentially reset with different people because you've kind of let the people that work for you believe that their favorite things about the job are things that you don't want them doing.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Did that answer the question about it? Like we're trying to use that terminology specifically for that reason, so that
So that they get confused and leave.
they so that they get clarity about whether they want to be there if there are actual professional standards at this job. And you know, it's not like, hey, you need to leave. It's more like, hey, we're looking to expand this. Like the company has tons of work coming in, but they aren't necessarily getting that work done, you know, in a timely fashion. And so they're losing a lot of that potential revenue because of just kind of ho-hum. I mean, not that the people aren't producing, but it's more that the people aren't always showing up to produce, you know.
Yeah.
But then they have guys that are your typical construction workers that are like working 60 hours a week too. And, you know, those guys they don't even need to be in a meeting because quite frankly, as a company, you don't care whether they like are on board with where your company's going because they're worker bees that just hammer out job after job after job and without complaint.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All of this live on our podcast, but
Yeah.
probably TMI.
Don't worry.
Oh,
about
I
it.
also had
Nobody's watching.
a real estate closing. Yeah, no joke. Except for that guy that said like.
Yeah.
I also had a real estate closing today, and that
you
was kind of nice. So
Good job.
You had you
yeah.
had a closing. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good work.
One of the longest 35 days of real estate closing that I've had. Like the house ended up needing so much work, and the part of it was piering the basement, like doing those I-beams in the basement, which those guys tore up all the walls and they made a mess everywhere. Like it was just like had to be re-drywalled. And I hear someone walking around in my house
Yeah.
at night. That's not normal.
It's not me.
Anyway, so took a long time to get it, or it just took a lot of back and forth to get all of that work done, which is not normally part of the realtor's, you know, job. But yeah.
So you had to line up the work?
Yeah. I ended up being the person to line up a lot of the contractors to do a lot of the work for the seller. For whatever reason. I don't know. He's busy. And I could do it. So yeah. I've actually never, most of the time when people do real estate closings, they ask for a bunch of things on their, after their inspection. But usually people are like, you know, we'll reduce the price by a couple $1,000 or and this particular buyer wasn't interested in, you know, just a concession of any kind. They actually genuinely wanted all of the work done. And so we bumped the price of the house up to accommodate, you know, both parties' needs. And then then the onus was on us to get all of the work done, which is kind of what you're trying to avoid, is you're trying to avoid the extra hassle of being the person that, you know, is like a free general contractor for a project.
Is that what you're trying to avoid, Dan?
That was what I was trying to avoid as a realtor. Yes. But
That
it
used to be a
didn't
lot
happen
more
this time.
common like 5 years ago. I
Which?
used to work for a lot of realtors that lined up all the work to be done on houses. But these days, it seems houses are just selling as is.
Yeah. And that was part of the reason why we were able to bump the price up to accommodate, was that if we do the work and you're not willing to pay for it, we might as well just go back to market and get a higher price for the house, because there aren't that many houses available, and there's almost no houses available within walking distance of Oklahoma Joe's, or it's not that. What's it called?
KC
now?
Joe's.
Casey Joe.
Joe's KC. There's no houses for
Yeah.
sale within walking distance of Joe's KC. And so it wasn't like we couldn't just go back to the market and sell it to someone different. So, yeah, but I got it closed today. And so I'm officially a realtor again, too, in addition to
Good job.
a big business coach. Yeah. It had been like
Mm-hmm.
6 months, I think, since I closed anything.
And a general
You
contractor.
start to wonder if you're even, you start to wonder if you're even a realtor after 6 months without a closing. But
I don't know if it took me 6 months.
what do you mean? To stop thinking that I was a realtor?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Last time I,
I don't
knew
know.
that
I
you
don't
were a
even know.
realtor was when you sold a house for old Pete.
Oh
That
yeah.
was like 6
Pete,
years
that was a
ago.
good that was a good house 5-6 years ago. How is Pete doing? I don't mean the official story. I mean the unofficial story.
I don't think we can talk
No
about
one
that.
knows. Okay.
Not on YouTube Live.
All right. He would
They'll come
send a
looking for him
hitman
again.
after us, wouldn't he?
Yeah, probably.
How's your build going, Darcy?
My build?
You got the chinking on those logs done, or
No, no. I don't know about that yet. But someday
You got
I'll
you got
learn.
your trees planted?
No, man. So I guess probably just maybe it's from like who I ordered it from. Maybe it's just when I ordered them, but mine won't ship until I think April 2nd.
Okay.
So
I still
don't know
have
if the nursery that I ordered from just doesn't ship yet, or if it's because of when I ordered it.
how many did you end up ordering?
200.
Mm-hmm. All cedars or pine?
What?
I did 100 cedar and 100 spruce.
Okay.
Where are you planting them?
Over at Jolly Ridge.
Oh, I thought we were talking about your house. I was like, dang, we're putting a forest in.
Yeah, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm starting a Christmas tree farm.
I have a little over 100 left to plant at my place. Most of them those cherry trees, a few walnut, and a few oak.
Nice.
So what am I at right now? Almost 500, 450 in the ground so far. We'll see.
That's a lot.
See if they take. It feels
Yeah.
like a lot, and my finger that won't bend past there is not happy about the drill situation. Although I told you the drill works really well as long as you use it correctly and don't get your hand caught in it. So, yeah.
I planted a
it's an
cherry
hour and
tree
21.
at my house this week.
Probably a better cherry tree than mine.
It's called a black Tartarian.
Black Tartarian.
Yeah.
I have
It's gonna
thought
be-
it might be a good idea just to plant a bunch of them in pots and try to sell them later this year.
Good. You looking up that black Tartarian?
Tartarian? Yeah.
It's a big sweet cherry with dark meat or flesh,
Black
whatever they call
Tartarian.
the
So it's
fruit
like
stuff.
a
Bing.
it's like a Bing, only it's a black.
It's like a Bing. It's just a little bit darker.
Okay. That's cool.
How long will
2 to
it
3 feet
be
tall,
before
sold
it
out,
starts to
32.
produce?
How long till it fruits? It'll probably make a few cherries
Yeah.
next year, and then the year after that, I don't know. I think that they probably only grow maybe about a foot a year. They're probably that type of tree. So
Is it a
right
dwarf or
now,
is it?
I don't know.
I mean, like most of them don't look like they're super tall trees, and they're like fruiting like dramatically in pictures, anyway.
Sure. Well, cherry trees, I don't think are supposed to get super big. Like my huge one here at the house is just out of control. But
Yeah.
I think generally a cherry tree is going to be like 10, 15 feet tall normally. So this one that I've got is probably like 6, 7 feet tall, but it'll just start filling out. The more, I don't know. I don't know how soon it'll like produce any number of cherries, but I imagine next year and the year after it'll start kind of making some.
Mm-hmm. My cherry trees are not like that. My cherry trees are going to be 60 feet tall.
Well, yeah, that's the black cherry, the rum cherry, right? We talked about
the rum
those.
cherry. Yeah.
It's more of a wood.
I don't even know how you would. Yeah, it's for hardwood. I guess they're the only place that they're like very plentiful is out in Pennsylvania, is where they just grow in the wild as part of the forest, kind of naturally. But I don't know. It's worth a shot with the wood growing, because why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
So 60
evidently
years
they
from
want
now,
them.
60 years from now, when you're 100, you're gonna have a nice cash crop there.
Somebody will. I mean, somebody's got to plant those Bitcoins for people in the future, right?
Mhm.
I mean, somebody's
Yeah.
got to plant something besides Bitcoin for the future people.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So, yeah. Well, I need to go to bed, so it's not a very exciting way to end. But I could just jump off, and you guys could keep going live forever if you want,
For the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
and then I'll come back tomorrow.
I probably need to get in the
Yeah.
shower. I'm feeling kind of sweaty
Okay.
and dirty.
Jimmy, thank you for being our special guest on the Not Your Average Guys show.
Yeah, you are.
It was a real
definitely-
pleasure.
You are the first
Yeah,
guest
that's it.
that we've ever
You're
had.
the first guest.
The
Yeah.
first guest
I mean,
and the
next-
first not your average guy.
Yeah. And you should come more prepared next time, because, you know, we did.
Yeah, right.
So,
I agree with that. That's good. It was fun though.
Okay.
I see what you guys are doing.
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to be a regular guest?
Yeah, but
There's nothing
let me
regular
know
about
more
Jimmy.
than 5 seconds before.
All right. It's Tuesday night.
No, it's 35 minutes after. Yeah, Tuesday night's
Right.
9:30.
Tuesday nights.
Yep.
9:30. Yeah. All right. Not Your Average Guys, signing off.
Bye.
See ya.